everyone, it's Charlene. Today I'm going to be making a card with some of the most recent release from Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to teach you a really fun technique that's really kind of unique. I have the All New Things stamps and coordinating dies here. You guys know I love butterflies, but you can do this technique with all kinds of different stamps. This involves vellum, and the vellum you want to use for this is a heavyweight vellum that is heat embossable. So I'm going to heat emboss on this. I'll place it inside of my MISTI here. I'll bring in some anti-static powder tool and cover the entire piece. I'm not sure which butterflies I'm going to ultimately use at this point, so I decided to stamp out all of them. And once I get them all on there, I will lift them up with the top plate, and I've got some clear embossing ink here. You just want to make sure to ink up your butterflies really well when you're doing this and stamp them down. And you can even do it a second time. That's the nice thing about having a stamp positioner. So I'll go back in and re-ink these. Making sure you have good coverage with your embossing ink really makes a difference in your final product that you get. So everything looks nice and good, so I'll go ahead and take my vellum out of my platform here. I'm using black embossing powder. Don't be afraid of black embossing powder. I know it is a little bit more tricky to work with, but in particular when you're working with vellum, because it is such a slick surface, the embossing powder, the excess powder, tends to come off pretty easily. So I've heated up my heat tool. I'm going to come in and melt all of the black embossing powder. It does melt really fast too on the vellum, so you got to move quickly, making sure everything is nice and shiny. And here is the fun part. We've got alcohol inks here. I'm starting with some blending solution. Now you're going to see that's going to kind of push out any of maybe the unmelted embossing powder or any of the top kind of coating of the embossing powder. It does not affect the end piece at all. So I've brought in some teal. I'm just dripping it over the top. I'll bring in some purple as well. This is going to be a really pretty color combination here. And once I get those drops down there, I'll bring in my blower tool and I'm just going to blow those inks around, helping them to dry as well as to blend. Look how pretty that looks. For this second butterfly, I'm going to bring in some blues and teals. Now on this one, I did not use the blending solution before I put the ink down, so you can see it doesn't move nearly as much without the blending solution. You also could use rubbing alcohol. I find though that the blending solution works better. Now the only thing you really do have to be kind of careful here with your alcohol inks is that you don't want to put too many drops on there, which I have a habit of doing. I get a little excited and I just put way too much down. So it's better to layer and add maybe a few more drops after you've done the first layer than the other way around and have a big old giant mess. If you're worried about getting the ink on your fingers, you can wear gloves when you're doing this. I find that it's not too big of a deal because I'm kind of careful when I open my bottles. I did get a little bit of staining on one of my fingers, but wasn't too bad. For this one, I want to bring in some pinks and purples. Now they do dry pretty fast if you're familiar with alcohol inks. You don't want to spend too much time picking out your colors. You kind of want to have a sense of what you're going to drip on there before you start dripping. Otherwise, you're going to get kind of a really concentrated spot. This large, beautiful butterfly, I decided to bring in some brighter greens. Now, remember I said it kind of eats away a little bit almost at the embossing powder, or kind of pushes out maybe what's not melted underneath. Once it's dry, it's not going to continue to do that. So you do not need to stress. Now I recommend doing this on some kind of non-porous surface or a surface that you don't care about, because it will get off of the vellum unless you're using a very large sheet of vellum to do this. So I've got this all on my glass mat, which is going to be super easy to clean up. I've got this all inked now, so I'll let that dry and clean my glass mat just with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, and it comes right up, which is so nice and convenient, right? This is totally dry now, nothing coming up off onto my hands at all. This took a couple minutes, not long at all. So now I'll bring in the coordinating dies and I'm going to cut all of our beautiful butterflies out. Now you could put a piece of copy paper over this before you die cut. I always just make sure to wipe off my plate afterwards because sometimes a little bit of that alcohol ink can kind of stick to the plate when you're die cutting. I also die cut all of the butterflies out in white cardstock, and the reason I did that is because if you put the butterflies over white cardstock, you're really going to see all of those beautiful blended colors, versus if you were to put them over, say, a dark sheet of cardstock like this, you're going to lose a lot of that beautiful, vibrant color. What I'm going to do here, because I want my wings to still be lifted, is I'm just going to add some glue to the center part of the white die cut. And then when I lay my butterfly over the top, it'll just adhere right there. You're not going to see any glue through this because the alcohol inks kind of hide any of that glue that you might potentially see through it otherwise. And then you can sort of lift and manipulate the wings with your fingers to give them as much or as little lift as you want. If you want more of a one-dimensional look, you could absolutely glue the entire butterfly down to the white cutout, and then you'll have a very flat one-dimensional look. I'll go ahead now and repeat that with all the rest of my butterflies. This here is the Zelia's or Zelia's, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, English Garden. It's this beautiful, beautiful red rubber stamp, and I was just in love with the look of it. So I decided to replicate essentially the image that's on the back of the stamp. So I've got a piece of gray cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and put my stamp down in my stamping platform here, and then place my cardstock with a couple of pieces of low tack tape on there, and then I will lift up my cardstock once I get this nice and straight with the top platform of my stamp wheel. So you've probably noticed I use a lot of different stamping platforms. I like to use my stamping platforms for lots of different techniques. So this in particular seems to work really well with my stamp wheel without anything inside of it. So you'll see me a lot of the times when I'm working with red rubber stamps, this is how I'll do it. So I got some good solid pressure on there. Ooh, gorgeous. So, so pretty. Now, I'm not going to lie, it was really hard to choose which butterflies to use. I wanted to use them all and just cover the entire card front, but I didn't want to lose that beautiful pattern that I had just stamped on the background. So I'm just sticking with those 3 butterflies, and I'm going to stamp out a few of the sentiments here. I have some intense black ink again, so ink those up and press down and lift. They look gorgeous. I decided on this one, wishing you joy and beauty. I added a little bit of foam tape to the back there, and I'm going to kind of tuck it in amongst the 3 butterflies that I chose. You could add foam tape to the back of your butterflies if you want them to be more raised. I decided to just go ahead and glue them directly to the background since I already have the wings kind of raised up. And when I put this in an envelope, that vellum is going to easily go flat, and I'm going to have pretty much a flat card here other than the little bit of dimension that I added with the sentiment. So that's really nice. But when you pull it out of the envelope, those wings kind of pop back up, which is just gorgeous. So I will glue down this big one here at the top. Decided to go a little bit more straight rather than at an angle with that one. Add some glue to the back of the completed panel and put it on an A2 sized card base. And that's it. So super quick and easy. And look how pretty it is. You have the shine from the embossing powder, the beautiful colors from those butterflies. And you could do this in so many different combinations. This kind of card just reminds me of why I love card making so much. You just cannot find something like this in a store. All right, I hope that you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that you'll know about future videos here on the Honeybee Stamps YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.